Hey there, fellow travelers. John here from the Tolkien Road. Uh, I've had something on my mind a little bit recently, I've had a lot on my mind with regard to Middle Earth, but one specific question that I wanted to tackle in this video hear from you all with your own thoughts on it. Obviously, the Rings of Power is what everybody's talking about right now, and meaning the Amazon TV show. And so the question on my mind, with one of the questions with regard to that is like, will Amazon's upcoming TV show be considered canon? Uh, so More on that in just a second. What exactly I mean by that in just a second. Do me a favor, if you're watching this far, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and just say what's up in the comments below. All right, so with the Rings of Power and then also the War of the Rohirrim coming soon, I'm starting to wonder what's going to be considered canonical going forward. So what do I mean by that term canonical? So it's basically the question of what's considered actually authoritative, like what actually is in kind of highfalutin terms, holy writ, if you will. Um, so and for example, in Christianity, right, you have this thing called the canon, which is the list of books that are in the Bible, right? They're the actually authoritative books. There's actually some differences between different groups of Christians on what books are considered canonical, and but each group, whatever their canon is, and however they arrive at it, that is what they look to, and they say, okay, these are the books that we considered like inspired, true. Other books might be helpful, right? But they don't have the same they don't carry the same weight, right? They don't carry the same authoritative weight as these other books. So in the terms of Middle Earth, the question is, now that we have this show coming that is going to be it's really going to be spinning off of Tolkien's, like, just some basic things that Tolkien established. It's going to be spinning off of those things and creating its own lore. We'll come back to Middle Earth in just a second, but something, probably most of you all are aware of, with Star Wars back in 2013, 2014, announcing that, Disney had bought it and then they were going to be creating the sequel trilogy. They ran into this problem because there had been all of these books published between the original trilogy and the new trilogy that dealt with additional stories. And so what they did was they created this like sub brand called Star Wars Legends, and they slapped that onto a bunch of these books from the past. And we're like, okay, these aren't actually, we're still going to sell these, and these are still like good stories, but they're not actually authoritative in our opinion, right? So they're not actually like the official canon. Now, if some of y'all are, I'm sure there's people who are watching this that are bigger Star Wars nerds than I am. So um, if I don't have that completely accurate, please forgive me. Feel free to correct me in the comments below. But that's that was how I understood it. So for example, I was I was a big fan of like the Thrawn trilogy that was written by Timothy Zahn way back in the day. It was kind of, for a long time, was kind of the de facto sequels to the original trilogy. And they were cool books and everything like that. But they, once Disney bought the rights and wanted to make their own stories, they were kind of like, okay, this isn't really, we might use some of the things in here, but this isn't really the, authoritative. So looking at that question with Middle Earth, given that we're going to have this whole big show coming that is based on Tolkien's works, right? How do we handle it? Now, of course, the Jackson films were a huge deal, right? And for many people, like, the Jackson films are definitive, right? They, like, when a lot of people picture Middle Earth, they think of the Jackson films, and those are the definitive tellings in their mind, right? Many people see those movies and think, well, that's what the Lord of the Rings is about, right? If I read the Lord of the Rings, I don't need to read the Lord of the Rings because I've seen the movie, right? I don't need to read the Hobbit because I've seen the 3 movies, right? Um, and for those of us who have actually read the books, we're like, I mean, I enjoyed the movies, but they got a lot of problems and they're not the same as the books. No way are they the same as the books. And I don't even think Jackson himself would put that forward, right? But in the case of Jackson, we at least have full-length books to go off of, right? And we can look to the books and say, no way, the canon is the books, right? No, there's no doubt in anybody's mind that knows what they're talking about that that the canon is the books. Okay. So you can have fun with the movies, but they aren't authoritative in the same way that the books are. But that's not going to really be the case with the Rings of Power, because they're essentially taking a very bare bones timeline and telling this epic story based in it, right? And that's one of the biggest challenges with this whole Rings of Power thing. I mean, to be quite honest, to be one of these writers, to be one of these show producers, having to work from this, it's a really daunting challenge. I can't quite say I pity them, because it's pretty cool to be able to be working on this kind of stuff. But it's kind of one of these things where if we get it wrong, then there's going to be a whole lot of people mad at us. So I really want to consider, I want to maybe even make a plea to the Tolkien estate that they would really wrestle with this question if they aren't already, right? What is actually authoritative going forward? Okay. I wish it looks like the Tolkien estate is active, right? They just updated their website in a pretty significant way. And I want to go through their website at some point in one of these videos and talk about some of that stuff. But they need, I feel like, to establish an official office of Tolkienian lore. They need to have some people who are true lore masters, who know what they're talking about, who work for them. And that is they are the official scribes, if you will, of interpreting Tolkien, right? And I personally am in favor of this, because I want them to be able to say to the Rings of Power, like, look, this is a great show. People, we want people to enjoy it, but it's not actually what Tolkien established, right? It's not actually that he wrote himself. I mean, there is so much, even in just the things that were published after Tolkien's lifetime, that help illuminate the canon, right? And from as far as we know, like the Silmarillion is not even involved. None of the actual text of the Silmarillion is even involved in the creation of this show. So, it's time, right, that there be actual lore masters, some kind of group of people that are the official, they're officially in charge of interpreting Tolkien, right? Officially in charge of saying, look, you can enjoy the show, but that's not actually how it happened. And here's the other thing. I don't know about you guys, but I really would love to see more actual written stories told in Middle Earth, more official written stories, right? There's a little bit of a controversy about fan fiction right now, because there's been people who have written fan fiction over the years, right? And why is that? Because we love Tolkien, right? But people write the fan fiction and maybe even don't even they're not trying to make any money off it. They just want to put it out there for fun, right? Because that's what fans do, right? Especially these kinds of fans, right? And I feel like Tolkien, Middle Earth fans, meaning Middle Earth fans, I feel like that's something that Tolkien would have been open to. But here's the big thing. Obviously, you don't want shoddy stuff getting out there and becoming like the official take, right? Or people viewing that as the official take. So why wouldn't you say to some folks, hey, you guys are in charge of managing this lore, and then we're going to go hire some really like the best writers out there who really understand Tolkien's lore, and you can create these collaborative books, or maybe you have the writer, but then he's kind of beholden to the lore masters, right? And maybe even brand these things kind of like what Star Wars did, where it's like Star Wars Legends. Maybe you even brand these things as Legends of Middle Earth or something like that, right? So that they don't carry the same weight as what Tolkien himself said. And, not only Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, The Silmarillion, but also Unfinished Tales, History of Middle Earth, and, Children of Húrin, Beren and Luthien, The Fall of Gondolin. You have these works, all right, that are Tolkien. This is what Tolkien himself wrote during his lifetime, but you give us as fans an opportunity to continue to enjoy further storytelling in Middle Earth. And then we can argue about whether this seems appropriate or not. I mean, fans are going to argue is no matter what, right? Only way that there can be no arguments really, or any substantial arguments, is if Tolkien himself, descended from heaven and said, here is my official take on this particular topic, right? This is not accurate, or this is accurate, right? But we're not going to get that, right? So my plea with the Tolkien estate is that you'd put some deep thought into how you handle this going forward. I really hope it's not just, essentially a trust fund, right? To like just, you know, like just to benefit Tolkien's family. I mean, you know, that should be a part of it. He should, his family should be able to benefit from what their, you know, their grandfather, their great grandfather, you know, put forward. And that's just a naturally right thing, right? But here's the other thing. There's not always going to be copyright laws in place that prevent this sort of thing from happening. So the Tolkien estate has to establish this some kind of way of determining what is official, what is canonical, or it's just going to eventually become a mess, right? And we're going to run into this with the Rings of Power and eventually the War of the Rohirrim if there's not somebody there to say like, yes, this is officially the way it happened. Now, with what I've heard about the Rings of Power so far, trying to compress the timeline, which I've covered in another video, I'll link to that below. If the Rings of Power is indeed like compressing the timeline in a way that sounds like they are, I don't see how that can be considered actual canon, right? How that can be considered official, officially in keeping with what Tolkien thought, right? So, look, Tolkien's mythology is complex, right? Just like all you have to do is look at the nature of Middle Earth. You know, I was looking at some of the stuff in there yesterday, and it's just like, wow, he put some extremely deep thought into these sorts of questions. So, you know, there really needs to be people who are full-time, like that's just what they do, right? So I mean, I just plead, and there's people capable of that out there. All right. I wouldn't say I am. I would say that there are people out there that are like truly capable of that kind of deep thought. I mean, I wouldn't be against you guys inviting me to apply for it, but I'm just saying there's people out there who really know what they're talking about, who really care what Tolkien thought, what he wrote, and those are the kinds of people that you should be saying, hey, help us guide, you know, the future of Tolkien's lore, right? Help us guide what this looks like in the future. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think I'm way off my rocker, you know, by saying that there should be future storytelling, that other people should have the chance? I think it's going to happen regardless, right? And I just want to see there be like true fans, people who really care, who the most important thing to them, and they get paid, right? A decent living to just answer that question, right? What is in keeping with Tolkien's lore, with what Tolkien established? And people can actually tell stories in that regard. I love Middle Earth so much. I want it to have a very bright future. And so, you know, this is something I would just say the Tolkien estate, please consider doing this. Please consider establishing some kind of office of Tolkienian lore. And you know, and I think honestly, you'd be able to get a lot of more fans on board with the direction things are going if you would, right? So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. If you watch this far, please make sure you like the video, hit that subscribe button, and if you really like this video, hit that notification bell so you know when we've got more videos coming out. Would you want to see other writers take a stab at storytelling in Middle Earth? Let me know in the comments below. All right, thanks everybody. Talk at you next time.